Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome one and all to another amazing podcast episode with our friends and partners at Takadao. I am privileged today to welcome Brother Murad and Sister Shereen. Salam, brother and sister. How are you both doing? Are you well?
Alhamdulillah, all good. Thank you so much for having us.
Fantastic. Glad to have you here. Sister Shereen, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Apologies for being late.
No problem, no problems. I take it you're in a sunny part of the world. It seems like you're in a very warm, sunny part of the world where you are.
We are actually in Rio de Janeiro, aka Riyadh.
I love that. What is it, 45, 50 degrees or something?
Yeah, around 45, yeah.
Oh, wow. Mashallah. That's challenging in itself as well, isn't it? But no, fantastic. I think we've done a couple of spaces before. I think this is the first time we've had the privilege of your company on the podcast. And I feel like it may be a little redundant to do this portion, but I always do it with our partners when we're on the podcast. So I think it's worth doing again. If you don't mind, would you both be kind enough to give us a brief outline of yourselves, Takadao, what you do there, just so the new members of the community are familiar with Takadao and yourselves?
Yeah, gentlemen first.
Definitely. Yeah, so thank you so much, first of all, for HAQQ Network and the entire team, Hassan, for inviting us. So a bit brief about us, about myself personally. So French Algerian, grew up in France and moved to the US very early, in my early college times. I came back to the Middle East back in 2005, actually 2005, 2003 in Dubai first. What I have been doing in the past 15 years or so in Dubai is that I launched a marketplace that was very successful during the time called Meltwood.com that got acquired by IKEA Group in Middle East, Saudi Arabia. So we grow very well our marketplace in Dubai, UAE, and enter Saudi market. Alhamdulillah, we got acquired in 2022, and I was finally not rich on paper, but rich with cash. Finally, we were always broke when we started, and then I had a big issue is that I had cash and I wanted to find out a way where I could put my money. Knowing 2008 crisis and everything, banking failing system, myself being a Muslim, looking at Sharia compliance way of where to park money, where to try to avoid having my money being depreciated, I would say, as we know that as on average, regular dudes will lose 6 to 8% of his money if it's just parked in cash. You add up this with a 2.5 payment on zakat fee that you have to pay, so it becomes huge. So you have to find ways to not leave your money hidden in a regular bank account. So I was looking at the Bitcoin at the time, the Bitcoin and the crypto, and I was very fascinated with what the Bitcoin was all about, the promise of store of value, preservation of cash, and also being able to be sent to anybody, anytime, and everything. So that was really something that was remarkable for me in terms of technology and looking at the money, money and the value of money in a different way. And I'm like, as a Muslim, that's something that we really should be doing, and looking at it, look around what was some of the fatwa that were initiated by scholars and what was the sentiment among Muslims. The non-Muslim, they had it already figured out. They wanted to have an alternative to, the banking system and whatever, based on this promise of having a better financial system. And then Muslims were lacking behind somehow. But finally, 3 years in 2022, me and Sharon with a bunch of amazing developers and amazing team, we wanted to actually find out a better way to do finance in a more ethical Sharia compliance way. Hence, we look at the banking system, we look at the lending borrowing system, and eventually we ended up in the $11 trillion industry, the insurance that is totally broken and underserved. As a Muslim population, we're underserved. We represent only 3% of this global 11 trillion yearly revenue. So we start looking at the concept, namely named as Takaful, way of making insurance Sharia compliance accessible to masses and also mutually convenient, meaning the money is owned by people, is paid by the people, and the surplus is owned by the people. And that's the promise of was Takafu was all about. And that's how. So we went directly dive in and developed this product. And happy to say that we are live today since 7 days. So I'll let Sharon maybe carry on the introduction. Sharon and I have been doing business together for the past 30 years almost. We did some great successful exit together, as I mentioned, and she's my partner in crime. The good thing is she's hiding behind the niqab, so I put everything on her. If I get any trouble with, the regulator, I say, look, come to Riyadh, try to find her. It's not me. It's all on her. Difficult to catch her. No, we are very like having fun building what we're doing and
So not funny.
Go ahead. It's your turn.
I think you said it all. So let Hassan move on. Otherwise, we're just gonna be stuck talking about me and you for hours.
I think it is important as well, Sharon, if you have the time to share with us your journey as well, because Murad did an excellent job, a very poetic explanation of the history. I do have a little sympathy for you if you're the person who we turn to, in times of strife and toil. But I think it'd be interesting to hear from you as well, for our listeners as well, as to where you come from, what you've done, etc.
Thank you for giving me more the mic. Thank you. No, I'm joking. Sharon, tell them who's behind everything. So she's the brain behind. She has this dropout PhD student who joined me in this crazy adventure. So she will tell you a little bit more about how she managed to execute and really on the dot, mashallah.
Jazakallah khair, Hassan and Murad. First of all, okay, we are in the crypto space where we talk about building trust, and this guy is like, oh, she's hiding behind a net to not get arrested or something. Guys, wipe that away from your head. None of that. None of that. Okay. We are real people. We live in Riyadh. You know where to find us. I guess my story begins with the death of a family friend and what the aftermath of that. So we were living in Ras Al Khaimah at the time, so this is the UAE, and one of our friends, it's a family that's around the same age as us, and the husband goes off for Umrah, so he drives from Ras Al Khaimah to Mecca. It's a 2-day drive, right? Back and forth. And on the way back, he goes with his friend, and his friend was driving. He falls asleep at the wheel. They get into a car accident, and both of them pass away on the spot. Then it was, subhanAllah, such a shock, right? So the family was a young family. The wife, there were 4 kids. Oldest one was 12 at the time. The youngest one was barely a year old. I think not even a year old, still crawling. And when we heard about it, we went to her home to offer our support. And the thing that I remember that day was when I walked into the room, to the living room, it was packed. I remember they had to like scoot over to make room for us, etc., because there were just so many sisters who came from everywhere in the city to show her support. And they brought food, and they brought gifts, and they brought money. But most important of all, they showed up, right? And they just brought this moral support and this sense of community. And that's the thing that really struck me and stayed with me. I'm like, when people are in need and people need help, they don't need institutions to step in. It's not social security, it's not insurance, it's not the government. It's actually other people. It's the community. Because so much of what you need is this network that helps you to get back on your feet. So that was number one. And I think ever since then, there were a lot of issues with the financial world. So 2008 financial crisis, which Murad has raised. And then, the development of technology, the very rapid development of technology, that made me understand and want to build what we're building today, which is something that is about community supporting and helping one another. And that is based deeply on technology, okay? And that is based on the new financial infrastructure that we have today, specifically if you want something different, which is the blockchain crypto infrastructure. And that's what we're doing here at Takadao. We are literally building a community of people that want to protect and grow their wealth together. And we're doing this on the blockchain. We're doing this with smart contracts because we need this community to be transparent and to be fair. So that's how we ended up doing what we're doing. And inshallah, we will have some barakah in it.
Inshallah, I pray that everything does continue in this beautiful journey that you're both embarking on. It's interesting that, the cycle of life, birth, death, so on and so forth, and how it can provide reflection on how one conducts one's life, how one does certain activities in their life. As Muslims, obviously, we have a very specific code that we stand by, and how we conduct our business, how we conduct our life, how we conduct our social affairs, and so on and so forth. Which I think nicely leads us into sort of the first main talking point that I'd like to cover. So I'm not an expert by any imagination. I don't think anybody in the world would call me an expert in the insurance field, although I have done some work historically. So I hand over to you, who are certainly more expert than I am in the field, to just sort of delve into why the quote unquote traditional insurance market is in some ways broken, difficult, certainly has aspects of usury with inside it, and certainly is complicated for someone like ourselves who are looking for a halal way to protect our assets, our investment, our houses, whatever it is. So I'd like to throw it over, and this is open for either or both to answer. But in your views, what's so problematic or broken about the traditional insurance market?
I will start, and then Sharon will come on board as well. So there's a funny thing is like I just came back from the US not long ago, and we all heard about this guy called Luigi, who just went down to New York and gunned down one of the largest, the CEO of one of the largest mutual insurance in the world. And what was shocking actually is that 50% of the American people were happy about that, an odious crime, and people were, not, these are not really unhappy. So to tell you the level of detestation in the way insurance is conducted today has reached to the limit of a crazy guy literally go and kill a CEO of a top company, and people on the street are okay with that. They even claim to say free Luigi and blah blah blah. That was something out of the head. We're talking about a country where the insurance is something very very common. They are the most insured people in the world, all type of insurance. So they are the most advanced market in the world in terms of insurance, and you see that situation happening. So was the insurance to begin with, the origin of insurance was based on the similar model? I would say no. If we track back basically the early insurance model, you go back to pre-Islamic, during the caravan and trading routes with the Muslim going from the Yemen all the way to Syria to sell their goods. It was a practice where people would say, this is a very hostile environment. We might die. We might lose our goods. We might lose our camel and so on and so forth. So they had this common understanding that the only way and the best way to actually conduct business and be sustainable for a long journey is to pull resources together. Let's get ensure one another. If one of your camel die and you have to dump the goods and leave it because we're all going to die if we stay behind, let's support you. And as soon as we arrive to the market, we see you lost and we can't compensate. So that's the origin actually of the first insurance. And then this has been taken later on by Lloyd Company, as you know, the British. They started doing the same thing with the shipping industry, where people will dump other people's goods in order to save the boat from sinking, and they will compensate themselves. So that was really a people product. It was a mutual benefit. It was people putting resources together to help one another, and that's the origin of insurance. So the insurance, actually, the way it started was not haram. The evolution of insurance changed this whole concept. Okay. So an interesting thing for us as Muslim is that during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this tradition of the people helping one another was actually accepted. It was not something that he talked bad about it or good about it. He let it be. Eventually, Umar ibn Khattab even established this concept that what we are calling now tabarru', donation, supporting one another, the concept of takaful, how people come together, join together to support one another, removing many of the obstacles. This is the origin of the insurance. Now, if we go now to the traditional insurance of today, it's a profit-seeking mechanism that has to win in any given situation. So there is two parties here, you and them. So you have to lose in order for them to win. So I like to call it the casino model. So they have, with the actual science, they have managed to calculate the risk and managed to always win. And when they cannot win, they will make sure that claims are not paid or discount the claim payout, all these kind of things, and always try to be in a winning situation. Why? Because it's owned by stakeholders, private people who own the insurance itself. Okay? Versus in our model, it's owned by the people. It's not owned by the stock shareholders who will control the fund. So here for us, we have no benefit in keeping and not paying claim because again, it goes back to the concept of mutual support. Okay. Now the classic insurance has also other elements that are totally not acceptable for us as Muslims. And regardless if you go looking at mutual or traditional insurance, is the same thing. They have the element of gharar, uncertainty, riba, and mesir. So riba, interest, and mesir, gambling. So all these things makes it totally haram for us to use. Unless it's an obligation, let's say I need to drive my car in London, I have to pay insurance, I have no choice. So I have to just pay because it's imposed by law. Muslim, beside the mandatory insurance, they will avoid interest to this because they understand that, alhamdulillah, that's at least something that Muslim, they understand insurance is haram. Okay. Now, Takaful, which represent only 0.3% of the total market of insurance in the world, okay, it's a concept that exists based on those original story that I just mentioned, and those Takaful concepts are removing those three elements that makes an insurance haram: interest, gambling, and uncertainty. They remove it completely to make it pure model that is Shar'an and acceptable by Muslims. And actually, if you remove those three elements and you build the concept of mutual protection, you have a halal concept being in existence. And that's exactly what we did with Takadao. So I'll let Sharon maybe add up if I missed some of those points or maybe clarified if there's any.
No, I think that was a very good overview.
So going back to life insurance, that is why we started with life insurance, is actually a protection fund, family protection. But we want it to be like life, and Muslims like, wow, the only one who can protect life is God. Why are you coming with this solution? But the reality, again, it's a protection fund to help family after you die. The Prophet ﷺ always told us, always tie your camel. Tied to camel. So a Muslim has an obligation actually on leaving a decent living to their family and not let their family beg after the person died. So it's an obligation on you to tie to camel and to be financially protected and protect your family. You see story where people are not doing so. And then when we see a Muslim family becoming scrambling to make ends meet when the breadwinner is passing away. And the concept of even life, you have the blood money, the concept of blood money when a tribe member will kill another tribe member. That was a practice and still a practice of today where you're supposed to pay the blood money in order to save the life of the person that has killed by accident by willingness another person. That's also a concept of life protection. You don't pay this amount, you die. So this is what we try to make the people understand. In a certain cases, and particularly in our cases, it's not a life insurance, it's a family protection fund. Okay. Last but not least, when you die, la qadar Allah, and your time is up, there is a cost for you to be buried, unfortunately, in the modern time we're living. This basic cost 20,000 US dollars minimum in the US, 5 to 10,000 in Europe. There is stories of brothers dying, leaving kids and women at home, and the mother cannot pay these costs. And I was in the US hearing this story. She ended up having to let the person who passed away being like cremated. They will burn your body by the state rule or whatever it is. That was crazy. Until some brothers, they heard that and they collected the money from the masjid in order for him to be decently buried. So look at the risk that you put yourself in, even leaving potentially your family scramble and not even being able to bury you decently as a Muslim. Hence, this protection fund is something very, very important to have in order not to leave the burden to your family and so on and so forth. Yeah. That's
I
all.
think that's a very important point. Just following up from where we were before, the promise of our Lord is, "You will return to me one day," and there's no doubt there is a legacy left afterwards. Whether that legacy is your family needs to bury you, whether that legacy is something that needs to be distributed, etc. And yes, without a doubt, the absolute cost of burial and processions that require probably reading, obviously the janazah namaz, preparing the khatam and everything else. It all comes at cost. It all comes at time and need. So absolutely, I think that's something. But there's 2 points that you picked up on earlier, which I thought was quite poignant, and I think it's worth sort of highlighting or underlining them slightly as well. I mean, as you say, a traditional insurance company, it's a zero-sum game. They have to make money, otherwise it doesn't work. It is the way it is. They're gambling on their claim payouts will be less than what they take in. Otherwise, the company ceases to function. The bigger the company, the more their overheads, the more money they have to make. And their whole thing is, although we'll insure you, we need to make sure that we have enough caveats and restrictions and protections to make sure that we don't pay too much out, that our reserves deplete, and we're in a position where essentially we can't cover our liabilities. So it goes without saying. Whereas if you look at, as you say, this Takaful model, you're saying it's a fun type thing where everyone's contributing and they're working on it together. It's not a sort of, I'm here to make ends meet and my only goal is to make money out of this because I'm a private corporation and my directors have a fiduciary duty towards my shareholders to ensure that the profit keeps going up. And I think that's important to acknowledging the difference. Now, nobody's saying that a Takaful operator or somebody who manages a fund, who looks after stuff, they shouldn't get paid. I think we can all agree that, at the end of the day, it is a hard job. It's not easy. You want a trustable person, and we're all humans of the world. I think we can accept that there is a cost to these activities, and the higher grade you want to work with, obviously this cost changes. But it's about where that, for me anyway, it's about how that cost is positioned. What's the purpose? Is this to benefit somebody bottom line in the back pocket, or is this for the betterment of the group? And I think for me personally, that's how I see sort of the distinction between traditional insurance and your more sort of takaful based insurance. And I think the other thing that obviously you pointed out quite well, and I think just slightly segueing into this, is this difference. I mean, there is this concept with everything is insurance and you shouldn't do insurance, etc. I mean, I'm not a scholar. I have no, scholarly studies. I'm not ulama. I'm not able to make a fatwa on this or anything, but just from my point of view, I think there is a difference between insuring risks of you passing or of a product, etc., to you getting into a joint enterprise where people come together as a community and you fund things. My mosque, for example, I participate in a fund for my mosque. I pay regularly to the mosque, and the idea is essentially that should someone in the community pass away, should there be a khatam or there be a gathering of sorts, and we need to get langar, we need to get food, we need to pay for the imam, for example, whatever. So we all come in together and fund. Now, if I was to pass away, inshallah, I won't anytime soon, certainly not before this podcast ends, but if I was to, then obviously my mosque, by virtue of everything that they would assist me in obviously whatever the rituals were for me. Now, I personally, just as you said, Brother Murad, tie your camel. I don't personally see it as having the awareness or the presence to look after your family, having the awareness to look after your loved ones, care for them, and to have this view in the long. So I very much echo everything that you're saying. I think, though, if we could just elaborate on a point that you touched on a little earlier. And I actually recall an answer. We actually did an AMA. I'm not sure if you remember. We did an AMA with Brother Muhammad about a year ago, I think now. 9 months to a year ago. And actually, I think you
Yeah.
answered this very question back then. And I love the answer, and I hope that we get it again, but I'll come back to it. So we have sort of the business or the sort of specific tenets and credos of how you should interact on a business level, insurance level, etc. The credo within the Sharia is written. These are the principles. This is what you need to do. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's very clean. Don't make it complicated. Here it is. How do you feel that resonates with sort of the crypto Web3 space within the decentralized governance structure and decentralized applications? How do you think Takaful and the Web3 space harmonize?
So you so eloquently summarized what he just said. And I wanted to draw in a point you made earlier with the question you just posed. So number one, Takaful is a form of mutual insurance. So in the Western world, the equivalent of a takaful is mutual insurance. Now, a lot of people will say, well, what's the difference then, right? And I want to say that there is a clear difference because when there has been a lot of abuse of the mutual insurance structure in the past, primarily that the management of the mutual insurance structure is a for-profit management. So the people who are actually managing the insurance company are doing it for profit. So despite the fact that the mutual itself is supposed to be a non-profit entity that only benefits the shareholders who are also the insured, in reality, it's run like a for-profit company, which means they continue to put the sort of the financial viability of the company over the well-being of the group. Now, this is a problem because there is no transparency. So even though the bylaws state that the policyholders or the shareholders are supposed to be the ones in control of the mutual insurance company, in reality, they are not because there's no transparency as to what the management is actually doing. You cannot trace the funds. You have to audit them. Sometimes you cannot audit them. You know, you have these issues with the auditors, etc. And plus, when it comes to governance, you have a mutual insurance company, and what you have at the head of the mutual insurance companies are all paid board members. And the policyholder, who is supposed to be a shareholder of the company, has almost no voice because his power is limited to how much he's contributed, how much he's paid in as a policyholder. So who actually controls the company? Again, it's a for-profit management. And as a result, there's no transparency and you have the same corruption that you have with just what we call the casino model of insurance. Now, very unfortunately, the current structure of Takaful today kind of mirrors that because there is a lack of transparency. And I don't want to say that they have bad intention there. They don't have bad intention. But because the technology limits them in the ways that they're able to be transparent, that's what you end up with, right? And this is why the blockchain technology, a public blockchain, smart contracts, the traceabilities is extremely important, right? We cannot genuinely build what we're trying to build today with Takadao and with the lifestyle without having this transparency. And this transparency is afforded to us only by this technology that we have today, which are these public blockchains. So I think it is incredibly important. So there's an evolution of everything, right? And in the case of the insurance company, there was a evolution. The insurance industry. There's an evolution of how insurance started, which was small groups of people trying to help each other. How insurance got scaled by becoming a profitable business, and now what insurance must do is to adopt the technology to become extremely transparent, so that we can go back to being people helping people.
Yeah. And to add on that, when you question regarding blockchain, Web3, decentralized organization and everything. Look, it's very interesting. They had a case, Takaful case in Egypt, where the government of Egypt had one of the largest Takaful operator, and they needed to pay the surplus back to the contributor. And they plainly decided to give the surplus into charities. So they went to the guys and say, hey, this is your money, we know, but since we don't know who you are, we cannot, physically, mathematically, or anything. They had no way to find out who was who. They say we're going to donate on your behalf, which is alhamdulillah acceptable. At the same time, they were like people very like opposed to that. They're like, this is mine, you should not do it. And why this charity, not this charity? There are a lot of issues. Fast forward, blockchain. I look at blockchain and Web3 and DeFi the same way I look at the printing machine. It's exactly the level of disruption that you're doing. Mass adoption, mass everything. So the Muslim at the time, they miss out the opportunity of, that's how the Khalifa, the Ottomanian kind of fall, because they thought that printing machine was a bid'ah and writing the Quran by hand or anything by hand was more ajar, more hasanat. So they left this to the non-Muslim, and the next thing that happened, dominance of the world. So I look at it as printing machine, web development. When the .com era comes, Now you have blockchain technology, DeFi, that changed the game again. You don't need a judge. You don't need a police officer. You don't need a lawyer. You don't need an accountant. With all this beautiful technology, you put all this trust on chain. No need for argument. No need for this. Like I say, all those random use cases that are costly for the community, costly for humanity, costly for everybody, can be simply put on chain when you can verify everything. And that's what we try to do, and we're aiming to do. Put everything on chain in order to be out of the loop and tell you, hey, the code is the law. Go ahead. And the beautiful thing about it, even though things are taking time for the regulator and everybody to take place. But trust me, I would rather have an open ledger auditing system that all those fake auditing things that are happening. And the top fours are always auditing the best company in the world, and we end up having to know that this guy was a scam, and this guy was why? Because even the top fours are managed to fake the auditing system. Why don't you give us an open ledger that can tell us exactly what happened? And that's the beauty of what the promise of blockchain crypto is giving you. And this will be adopted sooner or later, inshallah, by government.
Fantastic. I think if I like look at the complete answers, and I think Sister Shireen earlier on, you mentioned this is essentially a matter of trust, and then if you break that down into its key verticals, I think the big word that comes out to me is clarity. How clear are these institutions? How clear are their structures? How clear are their piping flows of how they work? Now, in a traditional company, we say, okay, I'm not going to name names before I get into trouble and somebody tries to sue me for naming a name, but let's just say insurance company X, and it's set up as a typical LLC. By right, you're probably not going to get much information apart from the company filings, and the company filings are going to be whatever the company filings are. There's no guarantee that you're going to be able to see it. Whereas you're quite right, if you deploy a smart contract on chain and it's publicly verified, you can individually read the contract. You can, or if obviously I myself, I'm not talented enough, unfortunately, that I could read through Solidity and understand every sort of variable mechanic. But what I could do, if I was really so inclined, is go read the audit report or pay somebody who has that knowledge to explain to me how this pool works. Where does the money go? Which wallet is it? Does it have a safe wallet, etc.? So that's one thing I think that definitely sort of harmonizes and brings together, and that's the where the clarity comes from. I'm quite right. I mean, Takadao is a pioneer in its field. Certainly, I'm not aware of anybody else, certainly not the same skill that Takadao is doing, they're trying to do what they're doing. And I'm not going to lie, it's something that's caught my eye as well in my personal capacity. And it's something that I'll be thinking about going forwards. And obviously, as your journey grows, because I believe there's other products as well, which are envisioned for the future. We'll come back to that in a second. But what I'd like to just segue onto now, and of course, I'm not asking you to give the secret sauce away, but I am asking sort of so our users understand the current offerings of Takadao. How does the live product work on a practical level? Let's just say I'm an individual, or let's just say there was an individual who had a policy with yourself. How does one get the policy, and upon their passing, what happens, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay, it's actually very straightforward, and I actually feel like when we were building this product, we hadn't thought about it as this is a product that we're building for Muslims. Obviously, we build it for ourselves, and we are Muslims, so the byproduct is it has to be Sharia compliant. But we just wanted a better product. We just wanted something that was easier to use, that was more transparent, that people would love, right? So one of the things that we tried to ensure was that the onboarding process is very easy. So when you come to us, you become an association member. That's the first step. Second step, you do your KYC. Third step, you upgrade your membership if you so choose to whatever level you wish for your life protection. We call this life protection. We don't use the traditional insurance terms because we very deliberately want to demonstrate that it is not the same as what you would experience with a normal insurance company. And that's it. You're protected. Now, if something happens to you, obviously we ask you for your beneficiary information. We do inform your beneficiaries if you choose to do so because you can opt out of informing them. And then if something does happen to you, your beneficiaries will come to us and there will be a claim process. Now, this is also an important part of what you call the secret sauce, which is not really a secret. You can find all of these in our white paper, in our documentation section. But the claims process was a very deliberate set of decisions that we made. So Number one, we said we do not want to have a centralized claim process where the company makes decisions on claims, because it gives you this incentive to always deny claims, right? Because you want your fund to perform better, even if it's just vanity, even if we don't directly benefit from it. It looks good, right? So we're like, let's take ourselves out of the picture. Let's have this claims process run by the members themselves. And so we took this idea and we're like, well, this is exactly how the blockchain works anyways. You have miners, you have verifiers. This is exactly how it works. So what we did for the claims process was we built in a verification system where you have a pool of verifiers who opt in. Now, for any claim that occurs, there's between 8 to 12 different verifiers, depending on the type of documentation that we get. And this is all a double blind process. So if you're a verifier, you don't know who the other verifier is. Now, this is the three-stage process. Stage one is documentation. So in the case of life insurance, because we have other protection funds that will be launched soon. So in the case of life protection, you essentially have to verify a death certificate, police certificate, medical certificate. For each document, you have three verifiers. They have a template that they're supposed to go through. They have a task list to check off this is yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And they have to come to a consensus on whether or not the document is authentic. And if they come to a consensus, then that stage is passed. It goes on to the second stage, which is the manual verification. At this point, we're having the verifiers make phone calls. So one person is calling the registrar, one person is calling the employer, one person is calling a family member to again verify, did this person pass away? When did this person pass away? And in what way did this person pass away? And again, once consensus is reached, at that point, stage two ends and the claim is paid. Now, if there is no consensus, then we involve a third party, which is not us, a third party independent individual to do the verifications, and then the members will then receive a report on the same. That's how we're doing verification.
By the way, in terms of secret sauce, when you build something, it has to be something that is visionary, like what's the impact? I was actually touched by the first brothers who actually came up with the white paper. We might call it Takaful white paper back in Sudan. I think it was back in the 70s, 75. You know what I was, may Allah bless them. You know what I was super excited about them is that they built this Takaful concept and they die before it even they saw it coming out. Because the Takaful Sudan was not able to find a fund to make it happen. Later on, this white paper has been picked up by the Malaysian government. Some students went to study the Takaful concept of Sudan from those early brothers, Allah yarhamhum, and they picked up on that. And from that, Takaful Malaysia was born in Saudi and everything. Look at the Sadaqah Jariyah that has been given. So when we stepped into this business, this secret sauce, we wanted that everybody should be able to use it actually. At the end of the day, we are like doing a better service. We compete in all the vertical services, being able to respond to our customers and our members and everything. But the reality, we want this to be a general insurance. May Allah maybe destroy all those traditional insurance and make it all Sharia. If they want to copy paste, the secret set is given, as we have been always giving as a ummah. We gave everything, take it. It's free for you to do. The important mission is here. What? We came to an age where we say, what will be greater than even a great business is the impact and the legacy that you leave in. And actually, that was one of the most biggest driver for me and my team at Shine to say, what are we leaving behind? Alhamdulillah. And and then Sharon explained the trick and intricacy of everything else. Things are open, white paper can be read. I invite everybody to use it, copy, Hababikum. We're here to solve the larger problem beyond us.
Sure, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for transparency. But again, I think just sort of circling back to the last point that we raised, clarity, trust. There's clarity and trust there. You've quite clearly explained what happens. It's all part of the white paper. It's all verifiable. They'll be able to see, obviously, the contract. It's very important, I think, for individuals, particularly when we're trusting people with money, to have that sort of faith and belief in your partners that you're working with. Now, we are coming up on the hour, and I know obviously everyone's very, very busy, and I beg your patience a little further. But before we move on to the closing aspects, I just wanted to sort of have a flavor for our community to sort of understand what's next. So we've talked about the lifestyle in some detail, but what's next for Takadao? What's the next frontier that you're going to charter?
You know, few weeks back, I was reading a documentation from our brothers in the US, family members of four, and the guy was paying $5,000 yearly to get the health insurance for him and his family. 5,000. And he was saying that he paid for 5 years, 6 years, never had the use for it. After 3 or 4 years, whatever, he brought his kids for some kind of checkup, and they refused to take care of it. Imagine he would have saved this 5, 10, 20,000, 30,000. He say, if I pay cash to the guy at the hospital, it was 2 or 3,000, that's it. And then if I put my kids and I declare a claim, my 5,000 becomes 6,000 next year. They never lose. So the American guy is like, he realized, why am I paying them? So the next frontier for us is tackling also the health insurance. Why do you have to pay upfront something that you don't need? So pay a certain amount, have the community coming together and be able to support you. So the health program will be launched, inshallah, soon. We have also the burial cost, because the protection family fund gives you a very, very comfortable amount for your family to at least live decently for the next 6 months to a year before, paying the rent, paying a school, whatever. But when it comes to the burial, is a big challenge for communities, and it costs between $5,000 to $20,000. And we will launch this product to be able to have your kids finally being protected, and also the elders people and people who have complication as well. So Takadao will also launch this burial.
So the lifestyle really has two pillars. The first pillar is to protect, which is what we are talking about, life protection, farewell benefits, health protection. And the second pillar is to grow, which is really about investments. Now, insurance fundamentally, it has two sides. On the one side, it's the actuarial, the underwriting, the risk side. And on the other side is the investment side. This is something that we've already been doing. So the insurance fund is to be invested, etc. Now, what we're doing new is to open up a parallel fund, quote unquote, a collective investment pool that maps out the same strategies that we're using for the lifestyle, the larger community fund. And we're allowing other people to use the same strategies to invest their money, such that they can actually benefit from this economies of scale. So when you invest together, you can obviously now invest in things which you cannot invest in alone, such as things like real estate or a Bitcoin miner or, this kind of stuff. And as well as have the ability to, first of all, monitor their funds, because now it's all completely transparent. It's all blockchain, digital, tokenized assets, and effect the fund strategy. Through governance, people can actually now say, well, I believe that we should have our money invested in such and such. You can raise a proposal, and then we can look at it as a group and we can vote on it and decide whether we want to allocate some of the budget there. So this is what's coming up next, because it is not only enough to protect, we also need to grow. If you cannot grow, you cannot protect, or there's nothing to protect anyways. So the second pillar is really the investments piece, and it is collective investments. It is a member directed process. And that's coupled with the crypto payments card, because obviously if you make money, you need to be able to spend it. So that is coming soon, inshallah, end of this year. So Q 2025.
Very, very exciting. And I think, seeing a brother and a sister like yourself, clearly know your field. It goes that saying the expertise oozes through the picture quality that we have coming through and the audio. It's good to have trustable, respectable Muslims as yourself. And honestly, from my perspective as a potential end user, as, an employee of a partner, I'm just really excited to see where your journey goes next. What frontier will you conquer next? Where will you go? What will you do? And how successful you'll be? And I'm certain, with by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we'll all get to a time and a place where we can proliferate Sharia compliant financing for brothers and sisters across the world. I've been very clear. I'm based inside the UK, and it's extremely difficult for me to access Sharia compliant products, whatever they are, whether that's loans, mortgages, I mean, quote unquote loans, mortgages, but halal equivalents of them, insurance, Takaful, it's quite difficult for me. And my end goal for Hack Network, and I've been very public about this, is if there's a brother sat in his home in Indonesia or he's sat somewhere in California, I want him to be able to access the same products to his own amount. Obviously, accepting that everybody has their own risk bases, their own tolerances, their own economic conditions. But without further ado, because I've trespassed on your time 2 minutes too long, I believe, I think I'll come to this and say, are there any parting words for the community? Is there anything that you'd like to share before we conclude?
No, I've been very, mashallah.
Murad seems to,
Yeah.
I don't know, are you able to hear him? Okay, there you go. Okay, I'll go first. And my call to action, as I always say, is always about the community. If we want to make this happen, this vision that we have, we need people. We actually need you guys to click on the website and physically go and join today. Because the bigger we are, the more power we have collectively, and the more we're able to execute on all of these things that we talk about. So join the Life DAO, be part of the community, which has other benefits as well, such as what we call a community connect service, such as the educational webinars that we are running on a regular basis. And yeah, help us make this possible, inshallah.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum, everyone. So if I have a clear message, look, we are at the crossroad. The community is listening. You have people rolling up their sleeve, building infrastructure to make product that could be Sharia compliant, removing the banking system that is completely corrupted, full of riba, based on the fractional reserve, and you name it. Insurance is, as we mentioned, is completely corrupted. Now you have Shabab, you have young people building technology. Of course, we need to know what they do, who they are, what's happening. But the transparency with the blockchain, crypto is there to actually validate. I know there's this buzzword of crypto, yeah. But when you see, mashallah, when I see the young people at HAQQ Network building infrastructure to benefit not only the Ummah, but the entire humanity, because at the end of the day, if you do a more sustainable, more inclusive system to verify things, those guys, those builders need to be supported. It becomes a very important way for us to finally own our technology. The issue, if the community doesn't help those projects, whomever they are, who's building Sharia compliance, of course you have to like the project. The project has to be something that change things. But if we don't, and the community doesn't support, we'll be consuming again products that are not fitted for Muslim, and we're gonna continue to be behind. And that's not what we want. That's not what I want for my kids. I want to leave my kids with, at least we did the best to have an ecosystem that is among that are having Sharia compliance and a vision to make a better economical system for all of us. And we're inclusive. If we manage to do that for the Muslim, is a net benefit for the non-Muslim because they're in the same trouble that we are in. Okay, and that's a beautiful message I should do. Whatever we're building, it's not only for our community. It's good for humanity. Nobody say no to a zero interest loan. Nobody say no to Cartel Hassan. Nobody say no to a community-based pool of supporters. This is what is important. Inshallah, let's support and take back the ownership of what was once one of the top ecosystem that used to live before this whole mess starting to happen.
Fantastic. So I think from my perspective, before I completely conclude, there's a few numbers that I want to put out there. There's roughly about 8 billion people in the world. The statistics suggest 20 to 25% of them are Muslims, somewhere around the 1.6 to 2 billion mark. And as Brother Murad said, Sharia-compliant finance accounts for 0.3% of a $11 trillion industry. Now, you could argue why. Perhaps there's an accessibility issue. Perhaps there's a liquidity issue. Perhaps there's an engagement issue. Perhaps there's a geographical issue. But what we have through the beauty of the distributed ledger technology and what we have through the beauty of the Web3 and crypto space is fungibility and access. So it doesn't matter where you are, providing you have an internet service, you can access these services and then can conclude all the tasks that you need to have access to them. And perhaps through the virtue of Web3 and crypto, perhaps we can proliferate this technology and extend that reach and get that figure from closer to from 0.3% to actually the 20 to 25% and maybe beyond. There's a variety of products within the Sharia Takaful insurance. Which one's superior? I leave it to the masses to organize. I prefer Takaful as a Muslim. It's the only option I really have, as Brother Murad said, unless there's a necessity. Similarly, for investment purposes, bonds or sukuk. For me, I personally would prefer Sukuk just because I find the security Sukuk provides to be superior. Now, if you look at all the different financial structures that there are, the different financial instruments, that there are, they exist. There's just an accessibility issue. And I think that's what we want to solve here. And with our friends and partners such as Takadao, with brothers and sisters like Brother Murad and Sister Shireen, I'm 100% certain that inshallah, we will get through this and we will be able to proliferate this technology and the opportunities and the instruments to the global population and get that number to 20-25% and beyond. On that note, we are 8 minutes over the hour. I'm going to thank Brother Murad and Sister Shireen for your time and your patience. And for me, as I continue to prattle, you did not stop me in any way. So thank you very much. I do like to talk, unfortunately. But thank you very much for your time. I wish you both the best of health and every success in your endeavors. And inshallah, talk again soon.
Thank you so much for having us. And salam alaikum to all of you guys. And may Allah protect us all, inshallah.
جزاك الله خير. هذا حسن. السلام عليكم.